Hello and welcome back to another KCC video. I'm Rob and today we'll be jumping into the ProRevenge archives. Before we start, please hit that subscribe button and click the notification bell so you know when the next video goes live. Our first story today comes to us from Flanago Milk. Teacher tells me I am lying about my mother having cancer. Let's jump right in. This was in my grade 11 year of high school. My computer class had a year-long substitute teacher because our amazing teacher was out for a year working on a government contract. Our previous teacher was outstanding. He had 6 different classes in our classroom, all happening at the same time, which were computer repair, programming level 1, programming level 2, networking level 1, networking level 2A, and level 2B. He would give a lecture for each of the classes on a specific day of the week, programming on Monday, repair on Tuesday, and so on. We would all work in our own groups and everything went quite well. The next year came around and I found out that we had a sub for the year. I had 2 back-to-back blocks in this class because I was doing 2 courses. I wandered up to the class to see what kind of teacher we were dealing with. Mainly interested because I was almost certain whoever they found did not have the credentials to teach at least half of those classes. The new teacher was a foreign woman that none of us have ever heard of before. For the purpose of the story, we will call her Mrs. S. I went and found my friends to tell them what I had seen. We were all optimistic, because from a very short conversation, she seemed quite informed and had a good background. It didn't last long. On the first day of class, Mrs. S introduced herself as a programming teacher who had been in school for 4 years. She went on to tell us about her programming experience in Microsoft Excel and Microsoft Access. She then told us that the programming students would not be doing the Java and C++ course we had signed up for and would instead be doing database and Excel because those are what she learned. And she said, and I quote, "They will be more useful than C and the Java." She also went on to suspend all lunch clubs because she didn't think high school students could be trusted with computers alone. Understandably, some of us were quite upset about that, considering that we came there to program. She also did not give the repair people or the networking people any kind of support, and completely stopped their lectures as well, preferring to let them figure it out themselves and self-teach without giving any of the resources to do so, and occasionally throwing out a test pre-written by the last teacher for her. This continued for about 2 weeks, till one day she came in and said, quite irritated, that we would actually be doing the Java now unless we wanted to keep doing database. So we switched to Java and she basically left us out to dry from there. Because she wasn't teaching database anymore, she came to harass people in computer repair. First, she told us that the shop room was too messy and made us throw out 90% of our training workstations and equipment because they were not important in her eyes. Equipment that did not belong to the school, but actually belonged to the other teacher. We took home what we could steal for safekeeping, but she did end up throwing out a few thousand in equipment. Then she started imposing stupid rules on us, such as, you can't have the computer on while you are troubleshooting inside because you could electrocute yourself. Or, you don't need the case open to troubleshoot motherboard light. Or my personal favorite and the most scary, maybe you should change the power supply to 240 volt if you aren't getting enough power. We followed most of her stupid requests as much as we could because she threatened to lock us out of the lab room and give us only textbook work if we didn't. Needless to say, it was a challenging time. One of the students in the networking area got fed up and started doing up his own coursework and lecturing to us so that we could at least get some kind of use out of the courses. To his credit, it was all very good, but Mrs. S had the balls to force him into doing it from there on out, and then turn around and give him low grades for not getting his own work done on time. A few months of this very uneasy balance go by, and my mother comes down with colon cancer. I have already had a handful of other family members suddenly taken from me by cancer, so understandably, this is a very stressful time. I was joking with my friends and trying not to break down over the whole thing. I had a very unstable laptop running Linux that would crash if it looked at it funny, and it had a horrible habit of corrupting the OS when the battery died because the reserve shutdown sensor didn't work anymore. Battery always read 0%, but would go for an hour or two. While I was working on the school desktop computer, I had a few pages open that I was taking notes in, and a Facebook tab so I could keep in contact with my mother because she was in surgery and I was waiting for her to come out. I look over and the teacher is snooping through my laptop, opening folders and closing windows, and eventually pushes the power button in till it shuts down, which also usually corrupts anything I was doing. The following happened. What the hell do you think you're doing? You shouldn't be on Facebook or writing notes on a personal computer during class time, especially when your grades are slipping. Thanks for bringing that up in front of everyone. That gives you no right to touch my stuff. You better hope you didn't just corrupt everything. This laptop breaks easy. Then you shouldn't have it out during class. Keep that tone up and I'll see you get a detention. At this point, I am trying just to keep calm because if I get too emotional, I have a tendency to explode. This is often made worse because of mild autism. I took a second reply in a calmer tone. I'm sorry, I'm just having a hard time at home right now. My mother was diagnosed with colon cancer and I am waiting to hear back. And this is the part which really set me off. You don't look like a kid whose mother has cancer. Quit making sob story excuses. Are you effing kidding me? It took every fiber of my body not to stand up and commit a felony right there. I gave her the dirtiest 1,000-yard stare I think I have ever done, while also trying not to burst out crying. I spoke to nobody for the rest of the day till I got home. People kept asking if I was okay, and I ignored everyone. My mother was out of the hospital and home by the time I got there. I broke down crying and told her about my day. Her face was comforting, but you could see the fire of an angry woman behind her brown eyes. She told me not to worry and that it'd be okay. A few weeks passed and I was called into the office for a one-on-one parent-teacher conference someone forgot to tell me about. There were all the teachers I had that year, good and bad. My learning assistance teacher, the VP, and the principal herself. They told me that we were there to discuss my grade slippage as soon as my mother came. My mother was about 10 minutes late, leaving me to awkwardly sit with all these people. She comes in and is all smiles. Sorry I'm late, I got held late at the hospital. Someone, but I'm not sure who, asked her why she was at the hospital and if everything is okay. My mother answered in her happy way. I was just getting my cancer checked on because I have cancer. The room went cold and her voice seemingly dripped with blood when she said it. My computer's teacher went pale and everyone in the room was giving a confused, "What on earth did you do?" look. My mother proceeded to relay me coming crying home about how I was treated to everyone present while Mrs. S tried to become one with the wall of the small meeting room. She kept it short, but to paraphrase, added the following. How dare you say something so careless to my son? I hope you are ashamed, and I hope you don't get invited back for another year. She then returned back to her normal happy self and discussed my grades like nothing happened, whilst half the teachers were still trying to figure out what just happened and told them that now she was out of the hospital, my grades should improve again. I just sat quiet the whole time and tried to suppress bursting out laughing. After that day, she never directly spoke to me again, had instructions relayed through other people or gave them to the class as a whole. She did her damnness to be nowhere near me and say nothing to me. My grades improved quite a bit and the year ended with me passing. Mrs. S was previously offered a job at the school as a secondary computer teacher, but after all the trouble, the job was pulled back. The next year, when our first computer teacher returned, he was furious to learn most of his equipment and personal books had been thrown out. We returned the things that we snagged during the purge, but he still lost a few thousand in personal teaching stuff. The school paid him back with $10,000, but he says he lost so much more than that in time and preset handmade equipment. We told him all about the horror show and he gave us all an extensive test normally given at the end of the year, which the vast majority of us failed. We ended up redoing all the computer courses from the previous year because, in his words, she didn't even teach us the basics. That sub can no longer teach in this or the neighboring districts. Wait, are you saying this teacher was actually licensed to be in that classroom because they didn't know a darn thing about what they were supposed to be teaching? They changed everything to suit their own limited knowledge. It's great to see so many people building up the KCC community, but the majority of you watching this video right now aren't actually subscribed. If you're enjoying this daily Reddit content, please hit that subscribe button. It's free and you can always reverse it later. Our next story today comes to us from Florida Trash Burner. Lie, cheat, lay off and gamble with our wages? Enjoy no IT department. Let's jump right in. Lurker finally coming out to share. Years back, I worked as the IT director for a small brokerage firm. These types of places try to run lean, so I was also the only IT personnel. I took the job, but was a bit underqualified if I am being truthful. The reason they gave it to me was because I was young and they thought they could underpay me. They were right. It was $10K more than I had ever made in my life. I had a crappy job at the time, so I took it for the resume title step. And honestly, it did work out as a good resume builder. I struggled and had to do an endless amount of learning on the job, but I made huge improvements. The day-to-day was sketchy there. We only had 5 employees, supporting the 4 partners and the 70+ brokers. Brokers didn't really work there. They rented a desk for a percentage, so they didn't care how many brokers there were on staff. There were a couple of gems, but ultimately we were understaffed because they looked at full-time employees like we were stealing from them. They made us work long hours and work weekends with no OT. Everyone was underpaid or overpaid buddy of someone. Worse was the crappy partners. The 4 partners were constantly doing shady crap. One partner would take money from our broker commissions and go to Vegas with it. If he lost the money, we are talking $100K per trip, he would just let the brokers know that there is a hold from the bank and their commissions are coming in slow. Another broker asked me straight up how to hide his affair from his wife. Another had me come to his house on company time and install some audio video equipment after hours without paying me. When I came on board, they were 10 years out of date on technology. I helped them get up to 100% redundant ISP lines, redundant network equipment, off-sited the mail to make it more reliable, dozens of improvements, and everyone was pretty happy. All brokers and employees loved the improvements. Then, the partners started doing really sketchy stuff. They had me open employee exchange mailboxes and run mail queries on email addresses. Turns out, they were lawyer emails between the lawyer and their client, a broker or employee. They had me do this all the time for anyone. I would have to collect it all, then they would fire them and keep their clients. It is illegal in the brokerage firm to look at them. I didn't know that at the time. They somehow convinced a lending company to merge with them. Totally different crew. They were nice, honest, real customer focused. I made friends with one of the lending agents. He helped me search for houses on his MLS account on lunch. Nicest guy. His wife and her dad ran the firm until the merger. I found out the plan was to fire everyone from the firm and just steal the name and the client list. They had only been there a few months, long enough to learn their business. I also found out they were going to fire me now that everything was more reliable. Guess how I found out? During an email query one of the partners had me do on another partner. So the only nice people at this crap hole were getting locked out of their offices over the weekend. I was getting fired now that I had essentially made myself redundant in their mind. Well, let me tell you about the red folder. The red folder was locked in my file cabinet. It contained every password for admin access to every system. It also contained the fire plan or downtime plan of every system in the company. My boss didn't really understand why we needed one, and he never really looked at it. Well, I called my friend who worked for the lending firm. I told him to head to the office and grab all the files and computers. They technically belong to them anyways. I told them the plan about changing the locks over the weekend. I told them that I was quitting and not to mention me. He said he understood and thanks. I changed the only other admin password that my boss had access to. I shredded the red folder. I emailed my resignation. They begged me to come back. They offered me a 30% pay bump. They said they were shocked I was so disloyal. I heard years later from a secretary that worked there at the time, it took them 4 months to get all systems under control again. They had to use a controller they had relied on before. I heard it cost them a year of my salary. From the comment section, you IT types get to have all the best revenge fun. Easy to plot revenge? Check. Easy to create a paper trail that leaves you in the clear while nailing the ne'er-do-wells to their respective crosses? Check. Easily apply to a different company with the ability to use your former, now scorched earth, employer as a good reference? Check. Watching the non-IT people squirm while their business circles the drain because they underestimated your importance? Check. It just goes on, and I want to be a part of it, but I will never learn to be an admin. Forget that. Our last story today comes to us from I work at a small booth. Steal a phone from our store? We'll take your car instead. Let's jump right in. So this wasn't me, but happened at one of the retail cell phone stores I manage a few hours ago. We put out demo phones for customers to play with. The funny thing about these phones is that they are locked, cannot be used, and have no real value. From time to time, a dumb thief will come in the stores and take one of these phones. Today was one of those times. This particular store is usually slow, so having 1 or 2 employees working at a time is normal. Today, one was at lunch, so only 1 employee was in the store. In walks 2 guys. One is engaging with the employee, asking questions, acting like an interested buyer. The second is looking at the demo phones, but in reality is taking it off the security stand. The employee notices that the guy removed the demo phone from the security device and turns to look at him. The thief makes a run towards the door, and unbelievably, the employee tackles the thief. The two roll around exchanging blows outside the store. It was a completely crazy scene. The good part about all this is that the thief got away with the phone, but in the process of wrestling with the employee, dropped his car keys out of his pocket. The employee picked up the car keys and went inside the store, locked the door, and called the police. To keep a longer story short, the cops came and towed the thief's 2016 Honda Accord. So he got a play phone that is as good as worthless and lost a good car. Also, the cops were easily able to identify the thief and put a warrant out for his arrest. One of the comments mentioned this, and it was true for me as well. When I worked in retail, we were told not to confront a thief under any circumstances. The cameras are there for a reason, and it's just not worth the chance of personal injury or worse. Thank you to all 3 OPs for posting their stories in the ProRevenge subreddit. They are linked in the description down below. Please go check them out. Check out one of these other videos, and if you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories.